Welcome to the Pastor and Postmaster podcast. What you wanted to hear in the sermon, but you didn't.
Where the Academy meets every day.
Hi.
And you're here this time.
Yeah, I was a little slow on the
Did you have a
uptake there,
stroke?
We are glad to have you back. We are talking about communism today. Dun, dun, dun.
Yes, comrade.
Yes,
music
comrade.
is
Thank
really
you, comrade.
cool.
You're here with us. This is something that has been, it's been an ongoing, I guess you'd say, impulse around the world for certainly the last 150 years, maybe a little bit longer than that, depending on where you want to get definitions. But hey, if we're talking about communism, let's actually define what it is. Karl Marx himself says it can be summed up in a single sentence, which is
What is that sentence?
the abolition of private property.
So we're talking collectivism, like
Collectivism?
like
Socialism?
the people own the property.
That is, the people on the property. And so,
I'm the layman here, so I'm going to be asking a lot of clarifying.
yeah, don't buy into that, audience. He's
I'm
more than
normally
just
that
a
person.
layman, but that's part of his mask he's wearing.
Well, but from a boomer perspective, like I was big into communism during the Sandinista period. Do you guys even know what that was?
Nope,
Yep,
not
80s.
it. I have no
Yeah,
idea what
like
that is.
Nicaragua.
Like Marxism was on the ascendancy in the 80s or so, I thought, and then the Berlin Wall fell down, and I took all my old books and sold them off or put them in the garage because I thought it was over.
Is that Gorbachev? Was
Yeah.
that? Oh.
But that time period, yeah.
Yeah, Reagan, tear down that wall.
Head on
In
that
Nicaragua.
I know a lot of people your age really bought into that it was a really popular ideology. Although some of them I know now deny it.
Well,
of
I think
course.
it's a good example of what we're seeing around us and in the news. We see they are very confident. We see them on the ascendancy. Like I would go buy used books down in Berkeley. There was a Marxist bookshop where I would park.
Oh,
And so I would look at those titles. I would pick some up and read them. And then after the wall fell, it was all books like the Soviets did it wrong.
yeah.
You know, so I thought it was kind of over. And
And that's me coming back. Could you name some figures that are proposing it now?
Someone used the word collectivism recently, didn't they?
Did they say it was warm collectivism?
Yes, I think they're shoveling snow right now.
But you need ID.
and they're having little snowball fights that are just getting out of hand.
Well, I also heard that got dismissed, though. You know, that was all a misunderstanding. From
Just a misunderstanding.
Yeah, just a misunderstanding.
Well,
AI.
I didn't. That was also, when Marco Rubio gave a speech at Munich, was it the Munich Security Conference, and he mentioned he talked about kind of the shared Christian culture between Western Europe and the U.S. And then another particular congresswoman was asked to weigh in on that, and she summed up what Rubio said was the shared Christian culture as material foundations in the class struggle.
Oh, jeez.
So she's using jargon and lingo that is specialized. It's specific. It means certain things, and I would think that even the common person like me kind of hears Marxism, communism, in that. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
It's
Do you
class
think she
struggle.
really? Do you think she really knows what she's talking about?
Newsom just said he scored a 960. Was it 960?
That's,
She might be
that's
like
now the
440.
new N word, so we're not allowed to say that.
960. Yeah.
She's probably lower than
I
Newsom.
would think
Just a
her
little
as
bit.
a social media communist. Like, she's a good communicator. She knows how to use social media, and
Yeah.
she knows how to connect with younger audiences.
Oh,
And
she's
just for
very
since
dangerous.
we haven't said that, AOC. So
Yeah.
anyway, for our viewers who may not know what we're talking about, you can look that up to fact check that. But yes, yes, if it's class struggle, because that's basically the assumption. Again, and part of this podcast in particular, we want to talk about why there's an appeal to it. If you look at the numbers, there is a big body count
Oh yeah.
of communism from 1917 until the present. How many dead, Bo?
Hundreds of millions. And actually, I wore a collared shirt today in out of respect for the hundreds of millions that have been killed.
And how have they been killed, most of them?
And I wanted to bring something up as the artist in residence. I need to admit something. I love communist propaganda art.
Oh,
The print.
We're gonna show
Yeah.
I
some.
love printerly
the
art.
bayonets and
Yeah, and I even love like the Cultural Revolution, which are more realism. I love that kind of art.
but they never look Chinese in
and
the
the-
actual art.
Back in around 1990, Denise and I went to New York, and we went to a modern or contemporary art museum and I can't remember which one it was. And the what was on display when we went there was the art of early Soviet art.
Really?
No,
That's
it was
awesome.
awesome. And what
That is
the
awesome.
theme was is you would go through and you would see all this art, these elevations for architecture, model cities like the Nazis,
Oh yeah.
right? That was a thing with
It's-
socialists.
Not pro-Nazi, but the
social-
Nazis and the communists. Their architecture was
Yeah,
beautiful.
exactly. So
In the
would
early
go
days.
through
Yeah.
and at every and this was the theme of the exhibition. You would see the art, who the artist was in the 20s and 30s, and you would see how they were eliminated under Stalin.
Oh.
And in
You
Stalin,
mean Uncle Joe?
Yes, and you see that this shift away from beauty and
Transcendence a little bit.
transcendence and a real optimism towards the
So-
future, and they were all sent out.
They were threats.
Yeah.
they
So
were killed after. Yes,
to kind of bring it into a lot of stuff that we talk about, it's very symbolic of iconography.
yes,
In
absolutely.
especially our religious iconography, we have our churches, we
Yes.
have a whole bunch of stuff.
holy
What's
symbols.
The holy
iconography?
symbol. Iconography.
I
Well,
really
it's
don't- I really
basically
actually
just
don't know.
icons.
Christians have to have
Yeah.
art.
Images.
Yeah,
Oh.
images.
Christians, I mean, humans,
No, it is good. It's your
humans
art.
have to
Yeah,
have art.
they have to have art.
Okay.
Even the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Is that the German? That was,
Although AI has really been helping them a lot.
was that Hitler's
Yes.
obsession with stealing art? Is that kind of his?
Well, he was stealing profane art.
oh,
He would call
okay.
it profane art,
Like Epstein's.
like modern art. No,
Yeah.
like modern art. Anything that was modern and not realist or
that Picasso?
You
I
mean
it-
something that wasn't Baroque?
yes. So he'd fix
If
it.
it ain't bro,
Well, you know, it's funny. There's so much that we
Yes.
could talk about. One thing I do want to focus on too is, you know, we kind of alluded to this. Hundreds of millions, and often the crazy part is like, unlike the Holocaust, where you have like, very detailed records.
Right.
The numbers sometimes, like how many people died in the Cultural Revolution in China, we're talking like a gap of tens of millions of people,
How many
Tens of
sparrows?
millions of
Possible.
nameless people.
Yeah.
nameless people,
Never remembered.
because there is no individual
Gosh.
in
Right.
Soviet communism and Maoism.
When I was living in San Francisco, I got to know quite a
interesting.
few Chinese people, and one particular family they had land. It was close to Hong Kong, and the government just came in, killed some of the elderly people, shipped off the younger men to work camps, and then the children fled to Hong Kong, where they lived basically as street rats until family in the United States could bring them over. And it was just
That was within our lifetime.
it was within our life. I know people who were born during this time that were there. I mean, this is very recent.
So why then, if this is the case, and this is the case, why would people then speak of it as something viable to try?
Because it hasn't been done correctly.
I
I
love that
every
line.
time. They say that every
They
time.
said every time.
I'm serious. This
It's true.
This was like in the early '90s when I'd go to Berkeley, and to watch this whole bookstore shift from this ascendant, optimistic titles and publications to, darn it, they just got it wrong. The Soviets just didn't know what they were doing. We're gonna.
Warm collectivism. I'm sure Stalin or Lenin never used the term warm collectivism like Mamdani did. But yes, could it be warmer? Anyway, so I don't think so. But let me tell you this: the reason that what we think, and this is our contention here in this podcast, because that's our opinions. That's what we had. Is this is a religion that takes the place of Christianity specifically?
Well,
Let's explain that.
so okay, well, let's talk a little bit how it started. Who it started under? Karl Marx. We were just talking prior to the podcast about the demonic relationship between
Yeah.
Karl Marx and his ideology.
Yeah, there's a book by a guy named Paul Kengor, a Catholic scholar, who has a book called The Devil and Karl Marx, and says that Karl Marx, was like not just like irreligious, but anti-Christian, and grew up in this like a German Lutheran household, a father that converted to Lutheranism that was previously Jewish, of course, and very liberal Lutheranism, by the way, and he apparently composed like satanic poetry. But usually the contention of Karl Marx is that it's just materialism.
Right.
There is the religion is opiates of the people, is what he said.
Yes.
Wow.
But it takes the place of Christianity. So how would you guys say this? How would you say, hey, Christianity has kind of a loose structure, and communism apes it? What's that structure when you think about like the 4-part story? Creation, fall,
Redemption.
and then like consummation, restoration.
Which
So
would be the utopian state.
yes.
Okay.
So in creation, you have obviously God creates the world, perfection, communion with Adam and Eve, and there's this continual presence of God. And then what brings sin into the world? In the Christian story?
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, disobedience.
I didn't know if we were
right?
talking about communism.
Oh
or,
yeah. Sorry.
I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah. In the Christian story, you
Trick
have that.
question.
So in communism, what is the state of creation? The perfect state. There is a state they believe in.
yeah.
It's like Zion.
The materialist natural state.
The natural state
So,
with no private property.
okay, I've already got a question, but I'm going to hold it.
Ah,
off.
Agenda
Yep.
21.
So the idea here,
Don't let
like,
me forget this question because it
okay, we'll go back to it. So
goes to creation.
the basic idea here is that there is a perfect state. Communism assumes this. It's the state of nature.
Right.
Goes back to Jean-Jacques Rousseau.
That's
in
where
the
I was
state of
going.
nature.
Okay.
Go ahead. Mention
Yeah.
Rousseau.
So is Marx? Is there a line from Rousseau?
Oh,
to
so
Marx?
absolutely, 1,000%.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're indebted to the French
See,
revolutionists.
even regular guys know this stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
You-
basically,
You can know this. You can actually know this stuff.
without AI. So
Yeah.
basically, the idea is there is, and this is true. This is a presupposition of communism, socialism broadly, that what causes sin is private property.
Right.
Wow.
That's the fall. When someone set up a fence and said, "This is my property; it's not yours," that's the
Wow.
fall.
When you're living on stolen land, if
Yeah.
you haven't heard that
So is
before.
this part of their gospel then?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Like with that's why like Marx says it's private property. There's so much more to it, but that's a presupposition. The fall then is when someone begins to take instead of sharing.
Right. When you're denying your fellow
So this
man.
is literally like a religion.
Let's
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
stick to these religious points because, the regular person is going, well, the Old Testament, that's private property, is all over that. Mm-hmm. Like,
Yep.
God ordained private
Yes,
property.
yeah, absolutely. And Jesus talks more about money than he does many things, money and possessions. And he doesn't say you can't have possessions or can't have money, right?
Nope.
So
Yeah, the Bible kind of assumes private property, even in
Yes.
its sharing, and it's the Jubilee year, assumes that people own it with their
But there's
allotment.
generosity within it.
Yeah.
That it's a gift. So we believe that it is a gift from God. We are to be good stewards
we're
of it.
stewards of it.
Right.
yes.
And we are to, take care of it to the betterment of our community, but it's still property that God has given us. Where they believe pretty much the opposite. Where
Yes.
it is for the people, and that if you have any stewardship
Right.
over it, that in and of itself is a sin against man, because you're denying that person the ability to be stewards over it with you.
Yeah, and why and the idea there's also a presupposition of envy. Envy drives communism and resentment. Nietzsche really points this out too.
Oh, yeah.
The
Wow.
idea, and this is why I think it's key, because someone might say, in Karl Marx's day, you might be like, well, in like 1850s France, say, you're working these 12-hour days, you got kids working in factories, people are barely subsisting, fraction of what the average person has today, in virtually every country. It seems to be a little more believable, but how is the college-educated kid in New York who has a job, isn't starving, appealing to communism? Envy.
Yeah.
Yes. And if you talk to anybody who's serious about their socialism, their communism, their collectivism, you will soon discern that there's some sort of bitterness, envy, and
There's a lot of guilt.
at the base of it, you can discern that pretty quickly.
And there
It's-
has to
it's a
be
bit on-
enemies.
Yes.
So like in redemption, this is the key thing. So the
Dang,
redemption
that's
and the
crazy.
redemption here, and redemption in the Christian story, of course, is that Christ himself
Right.
gives his life for his people and surrendering, the prerogatives, made himself nothing. And we know that in Philippians 2. And then that brings about redemption through regeneration, through the work of the church and transformation, and individually we believe that. What is redemption in, if the fall is private property, what's redemption?
Giving it to everybody else.
It's the rise of the proletariat.
Yeah. It's doing what the communists did in China.
Violent revolution.
Violent revolution.
Okay, well, that's making sense. So, can I just pause because you mentioned private property? Some time ago, I
on
had
private
been
property.
to I think it was a Tea Party event a long time ago, and they were talking about this thing called Agenda 21, and what it was, to my understanding, this agenda, which they could have been real or not, I don't know, because I was too young to care. But they had this thought that the communists or the socialist liberals were trying to enact law that would take away and drive the people in the rural counties into the cities.
Oh, they've been trying to do that for a long time.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
so that wasn't okay
That
because I remember hearing that and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't care, whatever, it's fine. Like,
Just think of Maoism.
this
Yeah.
is crazy.
If you are an
This is
independent,
bad.
self-sustaining person, you're a threat to the state.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Gosh.
Well, the other thing is that I know we talk a lot about private property in America, but we just saw that Florida eliminated property tax. And
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, especially in California, we're kind of renting our own property from the state.
So this is
Right.
this
through
is crazy.
property
This
taxes.
is literally like an opposing religion to Christianity, where the state is God.
Yes.
Well, then what's the consummation?
Who's Jesus?
Yeah, what
Yeah,
is
where does it
what
end?
are the where does it end? Where it ends?
Oh
and
my-
this is
my
the
mind, you
this
guys.
is the romanticism of when you get this, you
Mind
understand it all.
blown.
Yeah.
Sorry.
When you get
Stressed
redemption, what you have is after violent
Mm.
revolution. The communists always say this. This is a famous quote from Lenin. In order to make an omelet, you got to crack a few eggs.
Yes.
Now it's more than a few eggs, darn it. It's a lot more than a few eggs. But
Hundreds
the
of
idea
millions.
is hundreds
Yeah.
of millions. But there's going to have to be some collateral damage. There's going to have to be a few resistant people. We're doing it for their own good. We're saving them for themselves, even though we're eliminating them, putting them in the gulags.
But they're not collateral damage. Les, Christians, our
Right.
war
That's
is
true,
not
you're
against,
right.
yeah.
There are
Our war is not
martyrs,
against flesh
martyrs.
and blood, but against the principalities of darkness. In communism, there are no principalities of darkness, so the war that they are constantly craving is against flesh and blood. And
This is
so,
so counter.
cracking those few eggs is actually you're purifying. They're not martyrs in the sense that they're dying for the cause. They're dying to purify the proletariat.
And there's a future orientation of communism where that's the perversion of the eschatology. Eschatology is that God brings about the kingdom,
Right.
restores righteousness. In communism, because there is no God, you are the final judge.
Yeah.
And is it true in communism that utopia never really arrives because, or the the goal that we're trying to attain doesn't really arise because the moment you think you've landed, you are no longer a revolutionary.
Right. There's no progression.
Right.
And so there
So
always
there's no
has,
end.
yeah, there always
So,
has
like-
to be that progression.
Yeah, like in like in a critical sort of outlook of this, you always have to be critical of the state of
Right.
things.
Yes.
It never ends. Revolution never ends because then, if it ends, you've become the establishment.
Right.
And
Well,
that's why
Animal
you're gonna
Farm.
Yes,
That's why you'll be eliminated. And that's also why you can always say
Yeah.
it's never been tried. It really will never ever be tried.
right, and that's so. Then your mind goes to the photographs from the Stalin era, where the people are airbrushed because this is pre-AI and stuff. Where you actually had to get into the dark room.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you would have to eliminate people from these photos, from these negatives, and because they quit being revolutionaries.
What a glorious idea this all is.
Oh,
It
yeah.
sounds awesome.
But there's parts of it. There's parts of it I think that makes people want to embrace it. One,
bet.
they're conscious of Christianity. They don't
Do
want to.
share.
Why don't they go to Hinduism and just say everybody who's a lower class deserves it because they're paying for their sins in the last
Well,
life.
in essence, it's a secular version of Hinduism, where the
Yeah,
people that
it's
die
true.
and the people that were greedy and that had land and
Are
denied
finally
others,
getting their own.
yeah, they deserved it. They
But
did.
not in reincarnation, in our literal justice.
No, it's an annihilation.
Nah.
Which is coming up next. week.
Yes.
Help me out, you
Or next
guys,
time.
as the everyman here. Is it because I'm a Christian that I think I'm the target, or objectively, is Christianity the foil, the target, the anti to Gnosticism, communism, all these isms? They don't seem to focus on other religions. It's always about us. Is that because we're majority in the world, or is that objectively? Is there something in the spiritual realm that makes us incite this in these people?
Dude, that's a great question.
Christ in
Bo.
us.
Well, remember Marx's Islam kind of has a communistic.
Yes.
Very much
proclivity.
so.
Yep.
Yeah.
What's that French?
They have their own proletariat. They have their own.
and they're
Yeah.
socialist in their own like structure, so they're usually not the target. And you go practice takia.
Well, when you take a look at all these isms that pop up against Christianity, Christianity is the only religion that wasn't created by the devil.
Oh
And-
my God.
There we go.
Way.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, from our
From
perspective.
our perspective.
But
So,
Yeah.
but I mean, even we're not going to obviously get into some of these other religions, but the cultish practices that they promote are morally juxtaposed to
Yes.
everything Christianity and the West stands for.
right.
And that's and you know, during the Victorian era, there was this idea of the people that are more intelligent, the people that are more powerful, and they just need to keep the dumb people in check. You know, and so this higher form of thinking, as they would call it, came about. And communism is a brilliant way to keep all those people down. And that's one of the reasons why, like, Europe has started largely supporting it in a lot of ways.
And there's your envy factor, and
Right.
bitterness, and grievance.
And by the way, if you don't get it, like obviously a communist would say that we don't get it and you don't get it. If you make a bad judgment, say if you're a man of a darker complexion who doesn't buy into critical race theory, how do you fit? You're a Latino friend. If you side with the wrong team, what's the explanation for that?
You're a race traitor.
Yeah.
You have what you called false consciousness.
Is that what they did
Yeah.
to the ice guy that was walking
totally.
by the car and she was screaming at him, "You're a race traitor," and he's like,
false consciousness?
False consciousness.
Yeah.
Which
Wow.
means that the ruling class, ironically, always gets to interpret you psychologically.
So, so Larry,
Elder. Yeah,
yes,
"Love Larry."
the candidate for
Yep, yep.
governor, he was the blackface of.
White supremacy.
Yes.
Oh my
They literally
gosh.
said that.
Well, it's all about
Not our
power.
words, his.
You know, it says there's no truth but power.
Yes. So
Dang.
communism, interestingly enough, has a Nietzschean element because it is atheism.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have some clarifying questions for you seminary guys.
Oh, okay.
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 Oh gosh.
Oh, I've been waiting for this my whole life.
Nice.
It's all
You've been
led up to
training
now.
for
Finally get
this.
to use my education.
Yes.
So I've got some statements here from Nikolai Beradev.
Yep.
Did I
Yep.
pronounce that correctly?
No, I don't know.
Beradev.
Actually, I can't verify that, but I think so.
You have to
Right.
say it with the
Nikolai.
Russian accent.
Nikolai.
Russian,
Beradev.
Russian
Nikolai
Orthodox,
Beradev.
Philosopher, theologian, and writer. Okay.
Yep.
So, in my research, from his book, The Origin of Russian Communism and Christianity and Class Warfare, he made these observations. Are these fair summations of what we just talked about? He said that Marxism has a doctrine of deliverance. Okay. A messianic vocation of the proletariat.
Yep. The class is the savior.
Right.
Right.
And a future perfect society.
Oh, absolutely.
Eschatology.
That's a percent.
Can we you restated that, but we're using the term proletariat. Does everyone know what that means?
It's the po people.
The poor people.
The people who eat
the
their...
ones
Opposed to the
They
bourgeoisie.
eat soup
Okay.
out of Cool Whip.
So you think that there's a messianic vocation?
My grandma
of
and
the-
grandpa did that.
There's a messianic
Vocation.
sort of vocation or
Calling.
a role, a calling
Yep.
of the proletariat.
Yep. Yep.
So many saviors,
Yes.
a class of saviors.
A
Almost like the
collective-
priestly class.
Okay.
and that's part, and that's the perversion of the Christian gospel, because there is an aspect, obviously, of Christianity that it apes, because it's like in the kingdom of God, the meek shall inherit the earth.
Yeah.
The humble disciples are those that turn the world upside down.
Yes.
And
Right.
but they're not. But the key thing is that there's never violence.
Right.
So
Well,
Marxism is it's not an original sort of a philosophy. It depends on It comes from Christianity.
Yeah.
it
It's
actually...
derived from Christianity.
The modern idea of Marxism is, but it was actually a tactic used by the Greeks when they were trying to take towns. They would convince the people that their overlords weren't taking care of them. You know, it was
So the seeds were always there.
the seeds of propaganda were always there. You know, because going back to the proletariat, it's a nation of priests. It's a mockery of Christianity in that sense, because we are to be called to be a nation of priests. And in the same way, communism calls the poor, the proletariat, to become a nation of, their priests. Who,
Okay, so now
They mediate the presence of.
okay, so the proletariat and the target is the bourgeoisie.
Yes.
Now, the bourgeoisie, they're not the upper class, are they?
No, they're not the aristocrats. Although
Well, who are
the
they?
aristocrats had
People
to
like you
be
and me.
killed, but the bourgeoisie were the middle class. They were
that's
the
us.
they were the working class. They
So
were the
I'm
ones that
bougie?
had that they had any property. If they had businesses, especially small businesses, they were the ones that had controlled the mobility of the poor people.
They are
Okay,
the
the
white
societal-
evangelicals.
Yeah.
So like the path in society,
Yeah,
so there's freedom. There's some freedom there.
right.
Okay, now we didn't talk about this in our prep, but I'm hearing it a lot now. Like people are talking about this. Who are the kulaks?
Yeah, like,
Alright.
so
Yeah.
in the Soviet Union, you have essentially kind of a rural class of peasants that were self-reliant in the Soviet Union, and they were.
Did they own small amounts of property,
I think it
or
was.
were they sharecroppers? Or
Yeah, more like sharecroppers, but they also owned some of their own property.
okay.
Okay, I didn't know that part.
It would
have.
have been very medieval
So
system.
this is a good example of you
Yeah.
got the proletariat versus the bourgeoisie, and that simplifies it for us. But there's some layers in there.
Oh yeah.
But it's all those lower levels. So what about the factory owners or are the politicians really the ones on top, or the people, the ideologues? Are they the ones that are calling the shots?
That's a tough question because we see in communist transitions there's a lot of death, and it's kind
Yes.
of that's where we see who is truly on top.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, when we deal well, obviously the people that owned factories and stuff like that, they would have been the upper end of the bourgeoisie.
Yep.
And they would have had their land seized. They would at best be sent to gulag, but most likely they would have been killed.
At one point in
know.
the Soviet Union, there was like 1/5 of all the whole population was in gulags.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, at least they could cuddle to keep warm.
Warm,
My goodness.
warm collectivism.
Warm
Yeah, the
collectivism.
gulags, these work camps. I mean, if you want to read a book on that, Gulag Archipelago by
Right.
Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Solzhenitsyn makes this statement, famous statement in the book. He says, the line dividing good and evil runs down the center of every human heart. That's his famous statement. Very Christian statement. And he says, and who wants to tear out a piece of his own heart? So and this is the important part where communism is a heresy. Communism is a heresy because it denies original sin,
Yeah.
sin nature. It denies that I am fallen. It says I am good, like Pelagius said. I am good by nature. What corrupts me? Private property.
Private property.
Without
Or greed.
structural racism, without structural heteronormativity, or whatever these, freaking jargon they use, there would be you would do what was right.
Yeah, but this is kind of like the Old Testament of communism. We're talking about a specific set of Soviet communism as well as a lot
Right.
of the Chinese communism. We had the Khmer Rouge. These are kind of the early, the OT, still a lot of death, communism. But then, we shift religiously as we start to move past the initial implementation of communism.
So are we talking neo-Marxism then?
It's sort of like
Neo-communism?
neo-Marxism. It's gay racist communism.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. I apologize if I
so
offended
we're
anybody.
We're laughing about that, but
Yeah.
I mean,
But it is.
but I mean, it's in
but
our
it's
in
true.
our face now. Like
Yeah.
It is
and
true.
it's like
Yes.
Antifa, Trantifa,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yep,
like
yep.
like
Yep,
we
yep,
knew
yep,
what
yep.
Antifa was. Now
The
there's
Trantifa.
and it's not some sort of sleight of hand or
It's not some-
pejorative we're
yep.
throwing out there. It's what is happening.
It's literally on the title name. Like, think how many of the
Well, I mean,
flags.
like right now, you have trans violence where they are murdering people
Yep.
monthly
Monthly,
or
bro.
weekly.
Yeah,
It seems like it's
a
monthly.
lot.
Yeah, so I mean, it's here. It's not
here, yeah.
some.
And most of those guys are. I mean, they are. It's not name of Islam. It's certainly not Christian. It is.
Yeah.
Marxist.
Well,
It's their new religion.
I just want to do a little quick history lesson. So in Weimar, Germany, the 1930s, Hitler's starting to rise, and the anti-fascists, because Hitler was a fascist, obviously, they were communist, and they were an answer to Hitler's brown shirts. A lot of street fighting.
Yeah, street militias
Street
going
militia.
at it.
So the
And
Antifa,
not just little groups.
Oh, yeah.
Like you can watch the films,
Right.
in the old
Yeah.
days, of masses of people battling in the streets.
Right. And they were And the same they have the same flag, same ideology, the same everything. And so the Antifa that was back in the 1930s, the pro-socialists, we won't get into the Frankfurt School yet, but like those ideas are now put on us today. So when the anti-fascists are fighting fascists, that's the reason why they literally believe that anyone who opposes them is Hitler.
Yeah, as a Nazi.
Yeah, it's a Nazi. And that's the reason why they've come so strong, is because that same ideology that was in the 1930s in the same grouping is now today.
Yes.
And so that's one of the big reasons why you hear anyone who they disagree with, they call a Nazi.
Yeah, so for the average person, you know you're not a Nazi.
I know you're not a Nazi.
They know you're not a Nazi, but they are going to call you a Nazi.
And then they're going to act like
And they're
one
going to call you fascist.
themselves.
Yes,
But-
even though they know you're really not a fascist.
I don't think they actually understand what they're saying when you ask them what is a Nazi. They don't understand. They don't know how to give a logical reason. So a lot of them are just
Doesn't
doing
matter.
a lot of the things you're saying, but they don't understand the connection between religion, that this is a religion, and their ideology, and it's poison and where it came from. They literally can't tell you a single fact. They're just been fed the basics. But they don't go deep enough. If you go deep enough, you'll find that it's in pure evil.
By
They're
the
all
way-
NPCs.
Yeah.
By,
Oh my
the way,
gosh.
speaking of fascism, I will have a quote here from the fascist, where the term comes from, Benito Mussolini, 1925. He famously said about fascism, everything in the state, nothing outside the state, nothing against the state. Does that look like something we believe, our political philosophy?
No, not at all.
That's
So,
So
why are we
counter.
called fascists then?
Okay.
Because they need an enemy, like you were
Yeah.
saying.
Yes.
Yep.
And so like you could say that people to the right in the United States are nationalist because they love their nation or whatever. He's talking about nationalism in a very different way.
Very different way.
Very-
Yes. That nobody that I hang around with would ever affirm that.
All means of production in the state are only for the state.
Right.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, the Christian view traditionally is that there are different spheres of sovereignty. Obviously, there's the dimension of the family, there's the government, there's private industry, but these things are not all totalizing.
Right.
In communism, everything is subsumed under the state. That's the thing about fascism is, if I was reading right, during Weimar Germany, like there were guys that would switch. Like, remember the whole thing of like Graham Plattner, the Senate candidate from Maine?
Yeah.
He has a swastika on his chest, or whatever, and says,
Right.
well, now I'm a leftist. At some point out, in Weimar Germany, 1930s, people would switch between being brown shirts and being communists. That's how close
Yes.
they are to each other.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's not what we are.
Well, but it also gets to a point. Why is this ideology so appealing today to our young people?
I will tell you a few things. The first one
I
is...
am listening now. This is pretty good. I am
So-
telling you a few things. I'm all
So,
ears.
so if you are raised, a lot of people that I think embrace it are not coming from communist China because they've experienced it.
Yeah.
They are coming from a Christian background or a liberal Christian background.
Liberal Christian, yeah.
And they are haunted by Christian ideas, the meek shall inherit the earth,
Yes.
that there are in the Gospels great reversals. And this secularizes all of that.
And they're bored and they want something new. They want to jump on the bandwagon, some of
eschatology.
them, because that's why they don't go deeper. That's why they know only the surface of what they're talking about. They know nothing deeper than that because they just want to jump. They want to get out of class, okay? They just want to get out of class and go hold a sign.
And they don't want to be their parents.
That's a lot of them. I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
Right.
Yes.
No, there's a certain element of boredom. That
Well, of
haunts
course,
them.
we're trying to simplify it, and of course, there's going to be a wide variety of reasons, and a lot of overlap, I would think.
Of course. Yeah.
But if as Christians, we have to believe that there's a yearning deep inside
Yeah.
every human being, and so they're going to hear it in the Gospels
Yep.
and the Gospel, and if they're not, if the Spirit hasn't prepared them, we can get into soteriology and how that works, how you're saved. If they're not regenerate, those
Amen.
ideals are still
Amen.
deep within them,
Yep.
and you can even hear non-believers from non-believing families out in town or at school, whatever. They still have a Western Christian view
Yep.
of the way things should be, justice and so forth.
And that's
Yeah.
why it's so important for pastors to go verse by verse throughout the whole Bible. Because I think a lot of these liberal churches back when, these kids were, maybe they were fundamentalists. I don't know. They were in something abusive, something not understandable. And that's why it's so important just to preach the gospel from the pulpit. Just preach the gospel and live it out. And it's so important to have good theology, because if you don't, this is where it leads. This is where bad theology leads us.
Well, we also see that in the liberal economic order, that it has become far more difficult for Americans, especially young Americans, to acquire property. And that is one of the basis of our society.
That's a valid critique.
Is that why they want to tear down the entire thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you don't get rights unless you own property. Maybe not necessarily voting like when originally we constituted, but there is an idea that you are deprived rights if you don't have property.
Yeah.
Everybody has the right to property, a place to live. Everybody has a right
Liberty,
to
property.
to medical care. Everybody has. These are all human rights.
Right.
So now all these things are cast as human rights,
Right.
and not something you aspire to or you work towards. They are human rights. We are owed them.
And it's a little bit complicated with that critique, because that critique's valid. And the complicated part is that many of the people that are pushing for communism or socialism are the very ones that are not making this possible.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's kind of the paradox, is that there's people who know that when people get to a point of disillusionment, this is kind of the stages of Marxism. When they get to disillusionment, they're willing to say, well, what I get from the state is better than nothing.
Right.
Yes.
So that is a legitimate
Is that like
concern.
when the Holy Spirit comes into us? That's like the opposite.
Yeah.
The disillusionment happens. It's finally happened.
Yeah, you're right. You reach a point of that, and
Disillusionment fall on me. I wonder what their like worship songs would
So
be.
we're talking about common denominators. There's two common denominators. What does Herbert Butterfield say?
yeah,
Remember?
yeah. I mean, he says, yeah, right here. You know, it's funny, Bo. You just happen to have the quote on your show. How did you know that? If only it was just memorized. So he has a quote,
But it's not. I wasn't the original person who found the quote. Ryan was.
Right.
but what he was is he's the one that gave me the book. And then he regretted it because
Who gets
I
all the
took it
credit?
and it became mine. What if it was only owned by the collective?
Well,
There you
Solved,
go.
Bo.
Well, we do through the Internet Archive.
That's true. The archive.
We all own
it's
it
democratized.
collectively.
So just
now.
point out, Karl Marx said that the only time communism was ever successfully done was in the second chapter of Acts.
Really?
Yes. So
Expound.
no one had anything that he called his own. All possessions were shared.
People still died.
Boom.
It was
true.
not
That's
perfect.
right.
What do you mean?
Yeah, Ananias and Sapphira.
Yeah.
Because they lied about their property. Yeah, that's a great
gosh.
qualifier. So
And,
also,
and that's the only righteous
What, judgment?
judgment.
this is why you shouldn't have an old guy
Have you been taking Ozempic again?
Appropriation.
a punishment.
Yeah, retribution.
Judgment.
Second stroke of the podcast.
Yeah.
We love having you on. You're so vibrant.
getting to be like
You're so
me, bro.
vibrant. You're
One more and you're going to look like Mitch McConnell.
Oh, that's it.
What?
So someone could read
fight
that.
breaks
If
out.
I was a communist preaching grifter, I would be like, if I was like James Tallarico, I would go in there and say communism is in the Bible. That the apostles were the first communists because they didn't they
wish.
take the
Yeah,
passage
okay.
out of scripture and context. So there's an idea here though. By the way, the monastic communities actually practiced a form of what we call it communitarianism. If you surrender and become like a Capuchin monk or go to a monastery, you do surrender all your private assets. If you write books, I'm reading Thomas Merton's Sign of Jonas. He was a monk in Kentucky in the 1950s and 60s. Everything all the money he made from his books goes straight to the church. But you agree to that. So Herbert Butterfield, a British historian, wrote a book called Christianity and History, 1949. And he said this about Marxism, of course. So, for the 1940s, it's kind of the peak. The Soviet Union was still... victorious after World War II, and there were still naive people in America who were like, maybe what they're doing there is something we could really aspire to. In the 1930s, most of the intellectuals in America were just obsessed with the Soviet Union. They're
And
like,
the
if
New York
only
Times.
we could be
Yeah.
like them, right? But this is what Butterfield said. He said, the Marxists have, quote, appropriated truths which are dangerous in the hands of anybody except a Christian. Read that again. They've appropriated truths which are dangerous in the hands of anybody except a Christian. So the question for you, audience and us, what are the truths that they have appropriated?
Well, let's go back to those 4 things.
Let's go back. Well, let's think about that here. I mean, is there injustice with goods and services in the world?
Inequalities?
Inequalities.
Absolutely.
Through injustice.
But is it truly an injustice to have an inequality in terms of possessions, especially? Like, it's this idea of I deserve it. I mean, we see this all throughout Scripture. I mean, not everyone was as rich as Solomon. Not everyone could be king. Not everyone had these. God has designated scriptural or spiritual, skills and talents, however you want to believe, whether they're,
And the laborers at the end of the day got the same as the guys that began at the beginning of the day.
Yeah.
And Jesus said, that's fine.
Yeah.
But part of that is an assumption of God's providence over the world. Like the fact that you and I can say something like, I wasn't born as tall as Brody, or I wasn't born as rich as anybody that's in politics, basically. I didn't get some of the scam money from USAID. No, those things are things that we as a Christian kind of accept as like part of God's own placement for our lives.
Because we have the grace of Jesus, which is worth more than anything else.
And we have equality in the way
We're
that matters
rich.
ultimately.
We're rich in Christ.
We are.
But if you don't believe that, then any bit of inequality, doesn't matter where it's vertical, horizontal, is a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's hard for me to get my head around because I've been a believer for so long. And so I have to empathize, strong empathy with people. I have to stop and remember that I actually believe that I'm rich in Christ and those are true riches. So I don't see myself in competition with other people for riches as much as I would.
But you can still celebrate people. That's the thing is the people who believe in this communism, they can never celebrate anybody's win.
Right.
No.
Because it all belongs to me.
Yep.
It's a very selfish ideology.
And think about it. It is at the root of satanic pride.
Yeah.
Satan is not content with
Right.
his position, even exalted as it is, cast down.
What would be their communion, do you think?
Tear gas?
Ooh, dear. Okay, but
they
That's their
ate-
baptism. Sorry.
They ate all Christian holidays, though,
Yeah.
especially in Russia. They had those. They had, I forgot what they called them, not commissars, but they had guys that functioned like chaplains, and they didn't have a role in battle. They
The bread lines.
They kept them. They would preach. They would keep the faith of the guys. They had all sorts of all sorts of different events. They would commemorate their own martyrs and stuff. I mean, that's why you see like statues of Kim Jong-un that are like Nebuchadnezzar, and you see pictures. Like remember some guys were put in gulags because they took down a picture of Stalin in their house.
oh my gosh.
Or if like in your North Korea, Kim Jong-un, there must be a picture of Kim Jong-un in every room.
And the propaganda television must be playing 24/7.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you can't film there.
Okay, I have a question then. It's on topic too.
Okay.
Trust me. Because this has really happened to me. I've had communists, Marxists, socialists, I've had them push back against me when I've said, it's a religion. Why
We don't believe in religion.
Why do you think they become so indignant and push back on that statement when I say it's a religion? They say, "What are you talking about?" And I go through these 4 points and say, "You have all these features. It's a religion," and they get almost violent.
Jeez.
It's a requirement to deny the spiritual, and in their mind, only thing that is spiritual is religion. So if they direct correlation, they don't understand what a cultic practice is and how they participate with religious practices.
Well, how about former Christians though? Like some of them raised in Christian homes, or
They have to deny the soul, and the soul is too well connected to religion. So
Materialism.
materialism.
And that's why Darwinism is so important.
Right. Yeah, it's the evolution of man. There was nothing before. The idea is that we have nothing other than our flesh and blood.
Are they getting all of these ideas from their manifesto?
It's very atheistic, yes. It's very materialistic because it comes right after the Enlightenment period when it really starts becoming implemented.
Okay.
And
The French Revolution is kind of the precursor
Yeah.
to it.
So
Because they also do abolishing.
do you think there might be a spiritual dimension where they're feeling, Jesus said that the Spirit comes into the world to convict of sin. So
Yeah.
do you think there might be, for those with a Christian background, do you think that might be a source of conviction to them? Because they've deconstructed, they've rejected Christianity, and then you're kind of saying, well, no, you're still a religious person here.
let me ask you a question though.
Yes.
Is it still considered murder if you kill that which has no soul?
Okay. That's too deep.
A very, very complicated ethical question.
Maybe you can find that answer in their holy book.
Well, I could say this: if you certainly are just matter, without a creator to which to answer to, then all things are permissible. That's
Yeah.
what Dostoevsky said.
Yeah.
If there is no God, all things are permissible.
But okay, but so why does the person standing in front of me in the U.S. in 2026 get so angry when I make these statements that your view of socialism, communism, collectivism is really a religion?
You know what? Part of it is the sell on communism
'Cause
has
they hate
always
religion.
been its scientific basis. That's one of its biggest bluffs.
So you think you're insulting their intelligence?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
absolutely
But
are.
you're
Yeah.
insulting the intelligence of someone who has to have an enemy. They have to have an enemy. There has to be a revolution. And you're igniting that revolutionary, for lack of a better word, spirit,
The fervor.
the fervor.
Yeah, there's a spirit.
Yeah. You
You
know.
know, and I want to say, we're going to actually have a second part here, and we're going to talk a little bit about how it's contrary to human nature, because there's certain elements about private property which we alluded to, inequality in nature, including intelligence, genetics, things like that. We'll cover that. But I want to just make a conclusion here. One of my favorite movies is Padre Pio. If you've read, you watched that movie with Shia LaBeouf. It's about Padre Pio, kind of famous Capuchin monk. Dude, it is such a good movie. It's one of my favorites, and it so basically the plot in the movie is there's this dueling impulse between like the faithful priest, Catholic priest, and the Italian Marxists who are trying to draw them away. And you see these speeches where like, we're going to take history into our own hands.
Yeah.
And Padre Pio is like tempted by Satan, like, you don't do anything, you don't help anybody, you just sit here praying, you're a coward. And the people that are in the Reds are out there saying, we're going to take control of our destiny. And so Marxism tells you, instead of waiting for God to come down from heaven and waiting for the rapture, let's take it into our own hands.
Yeah.
So they're evangelicals. There's an activism involved.
There
Yeah.
is an activism.
So they would be more like evangelicals.
Yeah,
Right.
and
like they would appeal more to an evangelical than they would to somebody who's living in a monastery or a.
Absolutely. I think that's important. It's secularized. And so that idea, so at the very end of the movie, of course, without ruining it, I am going to ruin it, is that people attack like this fortress because there's an election that's like fraudulently stolen from
I
them.
haven't seen the film.
You're not going to watch it.
And so they finally go towards violence. They don't wait for the kingdom to come. They take matters in their own hands, and it ends in destruction. So that's the situation. We're just saying for you, if you're out there, like, if you decide to say, I'm done with Christianity, I'm going to be part of the revolution, you will be destroyed by the machine.
So they're counterfeit evangelicals too, not just
Yeah,
Christians.
yeah.
They have to evangelize because the system itself doesn't reproduce.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the next episode with the AI.
Kitty just wants to
All right,
say
so guys,
something.
like and subscribe, share it, and have your comments for us. And yes, there's
I'm
a
being
cat.
attacked
There's
by a
cat in
communist
here.
cat.
And this cat
We'll see you
from an
guys.
artist. Dudes with this. Okay,
This is
we will
June's
see you again next
counterpart.
episode.
Bye, guys.
Peace out.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
I was trying to make friends with that little guy, and he wouldn't come.